Hi, guys. Welcome to the War Room. And yes, you guessed it, as you always do, another fabulous and fantastic Testimony Tuesday. So, today's Testimony Tuesday, I'm going to be starting something different with you guys. I don't know if it's going to be a series or not just yet. I'm banking on finishing it today. But I also want to apologize for last week's Testimony Tuesday because I didn't realize that you had a certain amount of time to post a video, and I think I went over what I normally do, and I think I did about an hour and 5 minutes, and it cut off. It cut off most of the video, so most of you didn't get the prayer at the end or the blessing that I normally do at the end because it was cut. I apologize to you guys. So I'm going to make sure that I don't go over the time that I normally set for myself. And if I do, then I will make it a series. I will pick up the following week because I don't want you guys to miss any of the information that I am giving to you guys on a week-to-week basis. So today we are going to talk about, I'm going to start with the spirit of confusion, okay? And what I'm going to do with you guys is I'm going to present these spirits to you because these are spirits that are working in relationships. And God wants me to stay in the relationship era, the marriage era, because He said that there are a lot of His people suffering in this area, and there are a lot of families suffering. There are a lot of people who go to church every day and they're hanging on by a thread and they're dealing with some stuff and they can't talk about it. So one of my missions and job is to continue to share my testimonies of the things that I went through in my previous relationship, marriage, and different things like that. That maybe I can help you with something that I may say that could probably shed some light to someone today in their relationship or their marriage. So today we're going to start with the spirit of confusion. Yeah. I'm going to try to make this maybe 30 minutes. Do the best I can, guys. I am. Because when you have an assignment, you have to teach something. You may not get it all in at one time. And the reason I'm a little hesitant with this one is because the testimony that the Lord wants me to give today, I am immensely uncomfortable with. Uh, as a matter of fact, it's one of the most embarrassing times in my life. Now, I know I said last week I was embarrassed because of a situation that I went through, but that was nothing compared to what I have to share with you guys. And I'm not going to get on here and say, I don't want to tell it. I'm not going to do that because y'all already know. And like Jacob wrestled with the angel, I was wrestling with God. You sure? Do I have to? Why this one? Can it be another one? He was like, no, that's the one I want. I'm like, but I'm embarrassed by that one. And that's why I want you to do it. Okay? Because there's somebody who needs it. And they're not looking at it as an embarrassing moment in their relationship. They're looking for help. There are people out here who are in dire need of something you've already went through, you've already experienced, and you made it through it. So now I need you to talk about it. And although sometimes it's very uncomfortable, you guys already know I'm always obedient. So, I have two scriptures for you today, and one I'm going to give at the end, but the one I'm going to give in the beginning, I always ask you guys to come on with your notepad and your pen and paper so that you can take notes because, hey, we all need notes. We all need to continue to learn and to continue to get information. And we can get it. We can get it if we really want it. I was going to say something else, but I just had to go out of that. So the scripture that I'm going to start out with today is from 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 33. Can't do it without these. Hey, okay. And it reads, and I'm going to do the first dance because, there's two little parts to it. Well, it's actually just one verse, but I say stance because after the comma, then I just feel like that's the first dance. It says, for God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. And I'm going to stop right there because, Paul wrote the letter to churches and he goes on to tell them about the things that they're doing in the church and everything amongst the people, and how there's so much confusion and strife and situations going on. And then he goes on and talks about what the women should do, the men should do, and all these things and other. But confusion, the spirit of confusion doesn't just dwell in the body of Christ. It doesn't just dwell in the church. It dwells in marriages, it dwells in families, it dwells in relationships, it dwells everywhere. And so as the Lord put me on this journey to tell my testimonies, my experiences, he also reveals to me the spirits that presented themselves in those situations at the time. And me unknowing at the time, and even now when he talks to me about it and presents it to me, he says, I want you to teach people about this. I want you to say this. I want you to say that. And I'm like, how did I not see that during that time? How did I not? And he says, it's okay. It makes better for a good lesson when you begin to tell the people what your experience was. So what I'm going to do today, guys, is something I do all the time. I am going to read you guys the definition of what the word means. I'm going to read you the definition, okay? I don't know why I'm getting so nervous. Maybe because this one. Anyway, confusion. It is the lack of understanding. It is an uncertainty of a situation, or it's a situation of panic, okay? It's the breakdown of order and a disorderly jumble. Nothing is clear. It is all messed up. You can't get it together, figure it out. You're left, okay, I'm giving y'all other things. So you just left in a state of jumble. You can't figure out what's going on, okay? It is the state of being bewildered or unclear in one's mind, which is the battlefield. We talked about that last week, okay? About something. Being unclear in one's mind about something. It is the mistake of one person or thing for another. You're kind of baffled. You can't figure out what just happened. There's a spirit that comes in and it jumbles up and tangles up everything that you probably perceived as correct. But once the spirit of confusion comes in, once this spirit of lack of understanding, okay, and this spirit of uncertainty of a situation or anything, once this spirit comes in, I'm going to tell you what God told me, there is a need for communication. But many marriages, we would rather dwell in confusion. We would rather, and I don't mean to say it like that. I'll just say it from my perspective. When there's a lack of communication between a husband and a wife, because I'm not going to go into boyfriend, girlfriend, I'm talking about husbands and wives. There's a lack of communication. Confusion is in there somewhere. When you have one that wants to talk and work it out and the other person doesn't, there's a lack of that lack of communication. The spirit of confusion is dwelling there. It does not want you to get an understanding of your spouse. So one is feeling offended and the other one is trying to get their point across, but they're also trying to make it known that, hey, I'm trying to understand your point of view. Can you please help me understand it? But the other person may be offended and now they don't want to talk. Okay. I can say that because I acted in that. There was a lot of times when I just felt confused and I was just like, I don't understand what you're trying to say, what is going on. And I didn't want to talk. After I've already presented myself to want to talk and communicate and you don't give me that back, now I don't want to talk. So now that's the spirit of confusion, because now y'all going 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, however many days a week. You sleeping on the couch, you sleeping in the bed, he's sleeping on the couch, you sleeping in the bed. He's sleeping in the den, you sleeping, and it's confusion. Confusion has just set in, and there is a lack of understanding for each other. So when confusion comes in, remember when I talked about the narcissist spirit, it comes in. That's just the base of thing, the narcissistic spirit. And then he comes in with family members, cousins, and different things like that. So confusion has the same thing. Confusion comes in with his family members, okay? And it comes with a lot of uncertainty, okay? And uncertainty, the definition of that is just a state of being, it's just a state of being uncertain. You're not really sure. It is the opposite of certainty, okay? Which means certainty just establishes beyond a doubt. You know it. It's sure, okay? You're confident in that thing. But when you're uncertain, you are just the opposite of what that is, okay? And with uncertainty, that spirit can also lead to doubt, okay? And then when doubt comes in your relationship, doubt, definition of doubt, it's the lack of conviction. Ooh, I could say so much right there, but it'll take too long. And I promise I'm not going to do that. So when doubt comes in, it's the lack of conviction. And of course, it just means feeling uncertain. The lack of, okay? When doubt comes in, doubt brings things like lack of clarity, but you're unclear on a lot of things. And I'm giving you guys the definitions of these things first before I go into my testimony, so that you can understand. And if you're writing these definitions down, then you'll understand when I get to talking about the testimony why I had to go through the definition and everything. So when you're unclear, you're not easy. You're not easy to see the other person's point or hear or understand. It's not obvious or definite. It is pretty much confusion, okay? You're unclear on a whole lot of things. I need to get into the testimony. Okay, so the definition of unclear is not easy to see, to hear, or understand. It's not obvious, okay? It's not definite from anybody's perspective, okay? And when you are unclear in your relationship with the communication with your spouse, you are left to feel bewildered. And that's a very important one I want you guys to take note of. Bewildered simply means perplexed and confused. Very puzzled, which I was a whole lot during that time. You're completely baffled. I just don't get it. That's all that means. I just don't get it. I don't understand. But see, when the spirit of confusion comes into your relationship, this is its job. It is to not only bring itself confusion, but to bring its family members with it, so that you can have all these other emotions and spirits that you are fighting up against. And if you are not in your word, beloved, you will not understand what you are dealing with. But we have help today. We have help in the form of the Holy Written Word of God, which directs us, leads us, and guides us into all truths, okay? And when you begin to understand God's word and understand who he is for you and in your life, you can spot on, recognize these spirits when they come. I didn't recognize them. I was too busy trying to be the perfect wife at that time, okay? I was too busy trying to please who I was with and make sure that they were pleased with me so that I wouldn't have to leave or be sent back to Chicago, whatever was in my mind state. So I'm about to get real vulnerable with you guys in a second. It's real. Okay, Lord, you're going to have to be with me through this one, because I swear in the middle of it, I just want to not do it. You have to recognize, because when you are a child of God, you don't recognize all the time. And I'm not saying that we're perfect, because you could be in Christ and you have the Spirit of the Lord. You could pray, you can go to church, you can do all of these things, but you'll face certain things. And if you're not wise, the enemy will come in, and that's the scripture I'm going to give you at the end, so I'm not going to quote it. He's sifting, and he'll fool the very elect. And if you're not clothed in the word, if you don't have your garment on, if you don't have your armor on, you will be tricked. You will not see It's like you'll be hit with a Mack truck, because that's what I felt like happened with me. And as I now sit back and look at it, I'm like, dang God, had I been wiser or wise enough back then, or had I been studying like I should have been, but Paul had already said it. He said those that are not married cater to the things of the person that they're with, their spouse, their husband, or their wife. And those that are single cater to more to the things of God. And that is a true statement. Even though you may have your relationship with God and your separate relationship from what your husband or your wife has, you do tend to want to please, or, and when I say please, don't take that the wrong way. Your mate, your spouse. You want to be pleasing in their sight. You want to be pleasing to them. You don't want them to be displeased with you or find a reason to want to divorce you. And that was the state of mind that I was in. But if you're not clothing your armor, you'll miss it. And I'm not ashamed to say that I did. I missed it. I missed it a lot. I did. So let's get to this testimony so I can get it over with. Okay. So at that time, many of you heard me talk about, I was married before. This is actually, I'm married now, but this is my second marriage. I was married before for 15 years. Early in that marriage, I would say 2004, 2005, 2006, 4 years into that marriage. That was 2 years after Katrina hit. Katrina hit in 2005. And I believe in 2007, yeah, because my daughter was 11. 2007 is when stuff hit the fan. If I'm not mistaken. And I did my calculation, so I think I'm right. We were already going through things back then, which most couples do. People go through, and you can't sit up here and say you have a perfect marriage, and you could be married for 50 years, but you went through some things before you made to that 50 years. Some people just don't make it. Some people don't, and don't be condemned if you don't. If you get another chance and opportunity, you just make sure you do it the opposite, and you make sure you pay attention this time, okay? So during that time, there was a lot of things going on, and I'm gonna be a little more discreet. I'm gonna be discreet, unless the Lord tell me. And He's gonna force me to say it. If he forced me to say it, then I'll say it. But He doesn't force me to do anything. He gives me free will. So there was a lot of things going on at that time, and during that time, there were a lot of things in that marriage that confused me a lot. Lord, this is tough. And there were some things presented to me. Oh Lord, I don't know if I could do this one. I'm just gonna talk about one of the things that I was really, really confused about a lot in that marriage, and that was I was presented with ultimatum of choice all the time about choosing between my spouse and my children. Now I'm sitting here and I can't understand, why do I have to choose between my spouse and my children? That really didn't make sense to me in my mind, because I am what I am to them because I have to be what I have to be to them, and I'm who I am to you because I have to be who I have to be for you. I didn't realize until later that those were not my insecurities. I did not realize any of these things later. Like I said, I'm learning all of this as God is teaching me things, gathering my notes and my books on what I need to prepare to help the people with. So I never understood that question. And there were things said to me like, my hands are tied. Why? Why are they tied? I never could grasp that. I could never understand that. There were other things done and said toward other people, and I'll just say it like this: the other parent of the biological children, my older two children. I don't want to get too deep into that. But there were things done and said, and I was just confused on a lot of stuff. I'm trying to tell y'all, but I can't. Some things I just can't say because as we have established before, I don't ever want to diminish anyone's character, although it looks like that's what I'm doing sometimes, but I'm really not. I'm just trying to explain it from my perspective so that you'll understand. So I'll just leave that part right there. There were a lot of things done and said, okay? From his perspective, he felt that his hands was tied because they're not his kids, and he felt as if biologically, he felt as if he couldn't discipline them the way he felt he needed to. Very confusing because there was a lot of discipline going on that I didn't think needed to be done in such manners. So during this time, y'all could tell I'm having a hard time with this one because it's a lot with this, and yeah. During this time, and during all of the confusion, I'm just gonna skip. Went to work one day, and something didn't set right with me in my spirit. Okay, I didn't know what it was. There was just a spirit of fear there. Went to work. I never get the phone call, so I didn't get the phone call. But I got a phone call from my daughter, and she said, "Mom, we're at Grandma's house. Why we got to be here? This, that, and the other." And I'm like, "Well, you shouldn't be there. You know, so and so off today. There was no need for that." And she said, "No, we're here." So that feeling grew after that. Instantly, I began to pray because I didn't know what it was. So I was anxious to get home. So I went to pick them up, and we got home. And when we got home, the entire house was clear. There, um, he took all of his stuff. He left the couches and he left the entertainment stand. I went to the bedroom. All of his clothes were gone. Everything, everything. There was no explanation. There was no communication. There was nothing. My daughter was uh, turning 11 or something like that. I believe she had a skating party date. We walked in the house and I couldn't breathe because I'm like, I don't even get a chance. I'm not worth fighting for. I'm not worth this. I'm not worth. There was a lot of things going through my mind. So if anybody out there who has went through this or is going through this, it gets better with time. If you stick it out, if you take this advice and you, when I say it gets better, whatever your decision is with that. But if you recognize these spirits operating in your marriage, you have time to communicate with your spouse and work something out. So during that time, I had to call someone to come and take my daughter and her friends to the skating rink because that was already set up. And as they left, my son and myself, I believe he was 8 at the time, we sat there and we both cried. And he asked me a question. He said, "Why are we not worth fighting for? Why do the men in my life, the fathers in my life, walk away?" Wow. I didn't even know how to answer that. But for a kid to be so hurt, I mean, he cried real tears and he hugged me and it was just a lot. It was a lot at that moment. So I'm going to fast forward because, no, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. I began to reach out to members in the family because I didn't understand what was happening and what was going on. And I was hoping somebody could give me some answers. Tell me something, help me out. Everybody seemed to be unclear on what happened, didn't know. And I'm going to leave that right there because I know better. I know better. I know better. But I'm going to leave it right there. So even in the midst of no one giving me answers or telling me what went on or what they knew of the whereabouts of my husband at the time, nobody wanted to help me. I was left out there on my own feeling as if I had done something wrong. So I'm praying and I'm crying and I'm asking God, save my marriage, help me out, Lord. What have I done? Have I disappointed you? So I'm at this point I'm begging God, okay, because I wanted my marriage to work. We were just 4 years in, 3.5, 4, something like that, and I didn't feel like it was fair that that happened the way it did without me even getting a chance to explain, or not really explain because I didn't do anything wrong to have to explain anything, without getting a conversation to get communication to figure out what can we do, how can we work this situation out. And so my kid crying. He wants to come in. So fast forwarding, 3 months went by. It was about 3 months of this distance. There was no communication with me. I mean, I ran over to the house, to the grandma's house. I would come, I would try that conversation, I would try to visit, I would call. That was just a cutoff. I don't know if blocking was out then, but I think I was blocked. This is so embarrassing, so embarrassing. I would send messages, love texts, all kind of stuff. I was doing, ladies, you know how we do. Well, I can't say that because I don't know if anybody out there ever dealt with this situation. I was basically begging and pleading. Can you just talk to me? Can you just tell me what I did? Can you just help me understand why you pack up and leave without an explanation? There was nothing. There was no explanation. There was nothing. It was basically, why are you coming around here? Why are you over here? Why are you bothering me? And I felt this little. I felt like dirt. I felt like I wasn't worth fighting for. I felt a lot of emotions at that time. But God helped sustain me because I was patient. Fast forward again, there was a lot of things that transpired after that. There were some conversations when he decided to give me the time of day. There were some conversations had. There were some things said that possibly we could work out the situation. But there was never what I did to deserve that, what we did to deserve that. Mind you, that wasn't the first time. That was just the first time. There were 2 more other times, and it had gotten to a point to where I just got like, I ain't the one with the issue. If you could just easily pack up and leave and go somewhere else without even communicating with me, but you communicate with everybody else and you tell them what you feel the problem is, but you never talk to me, then I felt like I wasn't the problem. Now, I did, and I will take my part of the blame in the situation because, yes, I argued back. Yes, I had some issues with some things that I presented that maybe at the time he didn't see was fair enough for me to even present, and what maybe he didn't understand why I had these concerns. I was looking at things from a biblical standpoint, and maybe that was just a little too much, like the Bible say, leave and cleave, yet the cleaving is not to me. And yeah, I had concerns about that and just different things. So maybe it in his mind, in his mind, I'll just say it like that, he probably felt that I was whatever he felt that I was. I just wanted time and just some time. I don't care if you give me an hour, just give me something. Just give me something. But there was that, ladies, I just want to talk to y'all for a minute. If your husband is not trying with you, and if he's deliberately not giving you communication, go to God. Go to God on him. Go to God about him. I'm saying that because I didn't go to God about the situation. I didn't go to God on him. I just went to God and asked God to fix me. I was always asking God to fix me. I was always self-reflecting. What can I do better? If you tell me what I can do better, if you have to tell me through him, then I'll do it. That's what I was doing. But if you place him in God's hand, if you place the matter in God's hand, if you place the situation in God's hand, he will hear it. He will work it out for you. Okay? Fortunately, that wasn't the case for me. Because like I said, I was looking to be a pleasing wife. And I have hit my mark of 30 minutes in a few minutes. So I'm going to wrap this thing up, and then maybe I'll come back and finish it next week. And maybe my nerves will be a lot better. So there was some discussion, is where I left off. There was some discussion of maybe the matter working out. So 3 months after the separation, the distant, living in different places, separation or whatever you want to call that. I got a call that, hey, have you thought about this, that, and the other? Because I'm ready to come home. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm just like, I'll do whatever you say. I just want us to have a chance to work it out. So the discussion was had, came back home, moved back in, this and that and the other. And with that coming back, there were stipulations. There were ultimatums. I just want to say this was called, to me, like a mind contract. I was going to say a spiritual contract, but God wouldn't put nothing like that on me. There was a mind contract. I had to do this, and that. And I couldn't do this, and that in order for it to work out. And because I was so desperate for my marriage to work out, I did the this, and that. And I didn't do the this, and that. And one of those things was I couldn't have nothing to say about how you discipline the children. Even though I knew some things were just uncalled for and wrong, if I wanted this to work out, I had to leave the ball in your court. I had to make you comfortable enough so that your hands wouldn't feel tied. And yeah, that's why I said I'm embarrassed. It's just a lot that I just didn't use a lot of wisdom on. So I'm going to leave that right there. I'm not saying that, yeah, maybe I am saying that. Maybe I am. So anyway, guys, I am having a hard time getting my words together, and I'm usually not this bad at Testimony Tuesday. But my emotions are running rapid here, and I'm really trying my best to not go that route. So anyway, as the marriage proceeded, as you can see, from that 4-year mark, we ended up 10 years celebrating, renewing vows, and from there, 5 more years after that, and then the enemy just came all the way in. Because I think by that time, my mind frame was like, I didn't understand what happiness was. I didn't know what it was. I really did. I looked the definition of the word up and everything, and it still did not pertain to me and what I was. I didn't realize that happiness is from within. I wasn't happy with the situation simply because I felt controlled. And I allowed my emotions to get in the way a lot in that marriage. And when I say that, I think I was so perplexed and confused, and I was very puzzled as to, did I marry the right person? I'm sorry to say that, but I'm not sorry. I was just, it was a lot going on with me, and I'm not saying it like I was just messed up. It's just that I questioned that relationship a lot. I questioned it a lot because what it did, what I realize now, is that it took me away from who God called me to be. It took a lot of my character away. I once was strong, and then I became weak. And when I say that, I allowed a lot of things I shouldn't have allowed. I sat back and kept my mouth shut on a lot of things that I should have spoke up about. I allowed confusion to run rapid in that relationship. I allowed situations of panic. I allowed the lack of understanding because hey, sometimes I just didn't care. I just didn't want to. I just don't want no beef. So I got quiet for the space of 3 days or 4, or until I got myself together and came down off of fear, or came down in my mind as to what I wanted to say. I wanted to always make sure I was saying it right. But during that time, it don't matter what I said. It was never perceived for what it was, or what I was saying, or how I was trying to say it. And then I just doors start opening, and I start allowing all kind of negative spirits to dwell in my home, around me, and I was in such a bad place. Y'all see, I'm doing that self-reflecting thing. I'm trying to put the blame on me, because I take my blame, my part in it, okay? But for the most part, I lost who I was, and not simply because I wanted to. It's just my focus was on being the very best that I could be for that. But I couldn't because of all of the things that I had allowed to come in and to be spoken into me or into my life. And I lost track of who I was. Okay. So I can say that by the time I heard that word from 2 testimonies ago that said, hey, I heard this, that, and the other. Hey, I was open to hey. And when the enemy came and said, let's beat him at his own game, and you just say it first, I was open to that. Because I think by that time I had gotten tired. I had lost who I was and I wanted her back. Have you ever lost who you was? Have you ever loved who you was and then you got with somebody? And I'm not going to say the wrong person, okay? I'm just going to say you got with somebody and they changed your whole perspective, the whole perspective of who you knew yourself to be or who you knew God to be for you. And it caused you to feel like you wasted time. Well, that's where uncertainty, doubt comes in, because now you're doubting if you even heard from God concerning the place that you are in right now. And I want to say this. I'm going to go a little sidebar for a second. I wanted to say more. But because God knows that I'm very uncomfortable with some of the stuff that needed to be said, he's allowing me to say what makes me comfortable. Because I don't want to diminish anybody's character. I'll diminish mine before I diminish anybody else's. That's just who I am. And I'll take the blame before I point fingers at anybody else. And even though it seems like that's what I was doing by telling you some of the things that I was telling you, I was putting those things out there so you can see the spirits that come and dwell in relationships. And when they come, you're all over the place. And if you're not clothed and you don't have your armor on, you will not recognize. You won't even recognize yourself. That's the place I had gotten in. I didn't recognize who I was. I no longer wanted. I told you guys I had gotten to a place where I no longer, it's like I didn't even want to hear from God, because it's like, you let me go through this. You put him here. You put me with him. Like I was, in a sense, I was blaming God. That's why I said that I was in the place where I lost myself. I had gotten to the place where I'm like, Lord, I know you called me. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know who I am, but this doggone situation has caused me to be somebody that I don't like. I'm crying all the time. I'm begging for time and attention. I am praying and calling out to you, and I don't even hear you replying to me. God was always there. He was always replying to me. It was just I had allowed so much of the situation to boggle me down that I didn't have my listening ears on to even hear from God. My heart wasn't receptive. And yeah, I was going to church. I was singing in the choir. Yeah, I was doing all that stuff. But nobody knew I was drowning. Nobody knew I was dying on the inside. And I was coming to church and I was looking for that specific word. I wanted God to say something that I knew only could come from him. Sometimes I got it. Sometimes I didn't got it. I didn't get it. But I say that to say that people are in situations in their lives now where they are seeking a word from the Lord. And because they're seeking, they're becoming desperate. And that's a dangerous place to be in, beloved. Because when you become desperate, you're open to receive whatever it is, just to hear a word from God. And then it could be a false word from a false prophet, or somebody bringing forth the word, and they could be speaking something into your life that they got nothing to do with you or your situation. But you'll receive it because it's the closest thing you got to hearing from God. How do I know? Because I've been there. Okay. And a lot of my testimonies, a lot of my experiences are heavy, heartbreaking, yes. But it builds character. It built character. Because I would never have imagined in a couple of years that I'd be sitting here talking about my experiences, sharing with people to help them understand that if I made it through it, you can make it through it. And the reason why I know you can make it through it is because everybody's going through something. Everybody goes through something. And we're not the only person going through that. We're not the only person going through that. The same afflictions that you are going through are in your brethren. There are church people everywhere. There are Christians, believers everywhere going through stuff silently because they don't want anybody to know, because they proclaim the name Jesus, but they are dying. They are thirsty. And you have people out here that won't share their testimony, that won't tell you, hey, brother, I know you can make it through that, man, because I went through that, man. I almost divorced my wife, man, but I'm glad I gave it another shot. Man, I couldn't stand her guts, but I'm glad I gave it another shot. Woman of God, man, I can't stand my husband, but so-and-so come over there by the water fountain every day, and he talk to me, and he give me the attention I need and the time I need. Oh, and he takes my mind off of my husband. No, we don't want to tell nobody what we've been through because we embarrassed. We don't want nobody to know. Well, I've been walked out on 3 times in that marriage before it ended. I've been walked out on 3 times, and each time I blamed myself. And every time he came back, I felt the need to change for him, to better how he felt about me. But I should have been seeking God about everything because I wasn't doing that. And as hard as this is to say, well, I ain't gonna say hard because it ain't hard at all, but as embarrassing as this is to say, I wasn't praying for him. I wasn't. I had stopped. I was at first. Let me take that back. I was praying for him, but I had stopped because there had become a time in my life where I felt like, look, I am a gift, and you don't want this gift. So why am I praying for you? Women, that is a big mistake. Always pray for him. Always cover him. You tell your daddy what you need from him. You tell your daddy on him. You tell God what you need him to understand about you. Because what I didn't know at that time is that I could tell God what I need that man to understand about me. I didn't do that. I didn't know to do that. I've learned it now. I've learned it now. And the enemy can't come in, even though he tried to in this marriage. He tried to bring the same kind of situations through a different lens. Because I told you, he's not that smart. He come with the same tricks. He just has on a different costume each time. And he tried to come in with a different costume, but with the same thing. But I beat him at his own game. And I told you guys that in the last testimony. All you got to do is go back and look at it. And I will say this, and then I'm going to end it. Whenever there is confusion in your marriage, whenever there is miscommunication, is what I meant to say. Whenever there's miscommunication in your marriage, there is confusion. Don't batter your spouse. Don't batter your husband, wife. Don't batter your wife, husbands. Hey, there's a spirit here we're unaware of. Let's try to get this together. Let's try to figure it out. Because if you don't, and you continue with that lack of communication, that confusion spirit dwells, it grows, and then all the uncertainties come. Then here comes the doubt. Then you're both unclear on what it is that you exactly want from each other. And then after that, everything is left perplexed. And then the next thing you know, you're walking to the divorce court. God does not desire for us to get divorced. And that is not what God desires. But if it happens, don't be condemned. I'm telling you, don't be condemned. And that's a whole nother lesson, so I'm not going to get off into that. But I just want to leave you with this scripture. And it's 1 Peter 5:8. And it says, be sober, be vigilant. Because your adversary, that's your enemy, okay? That's the devil. He tells you here clearly. Because your adversary, the devil, is not your husband. It's not your wife. Your adversary, your enemy is the devil, okay? He, as a roaring lion, he's not a lion. He ain't got that big of a bite, okay? He just walks about. He's a perpetrator. As a lion, he walketh about, seeking. He's looking for those who are not armed, are not clothed in their armor, okay? Whom he may devour. Listen, the only way you can be devoured is if you are not clothed in your armor. The reason why he's seeking, because there are some he can't get. I believe those are the ones that make it 30, 40 years, 20-something years in their marriage, you know. And I really can't say 20-something. I'll say if you make it to 25, and I say that for own personal reasons. If you make it to 25, then you have went through some stuff. And you have clothed yourself in the armor of God. And you are fighting against the enemy. And you're not allowing him to come in and devour. But there are those that after he's done seeking, he finds those who he can devour. Don't be devoured, beloved. Don't allow the enemy to come in and run rapid in your marriage, in your relationship. Don't let him turn you against your husband. Wives, pray for him. Don't let him turn you against your wives, man of God. Pray for them. Place them in God's hand. Because whatever the situation is not as bad as you think it is. Trust me, it's not. But you can be blind if you don't communicate. And if you don't seek God for guidance with your marriage. And if you don't seek guidance with God for your marriage, then guess what? You'll allow all manner of evil to come in. And it can break up your home. I've known some people that said I almost was at the divorce court. Heck, we was at the divorce court. And when we were sitting at the table, we decided this ain't something we want to do. Beloved, I encourage you to stand strong and pray for your spouse. Pray for your mate. Because if you think getting rid of them is the answer, there will come a time when you'll not want to be alone, and then you'll meet somebody and you'll get married again or whatever have you. God will give you another chance, and you're still going to have to go through that same test if you don't pass it the first time. Okay? I'm going to end the video. It's not really where I want to stop at, but I'm going to end it because my nerves are not good. Because I feel like I should have said more. And I can. And if you have any questions, you can just type them down in the comments and I will answer them. If you want to reach out to me on Messenger, you can. If you want to be a little bit more private. And if you have any questions concerning this and you want to ask some of the things that I didn't state out loud, and I'm doing that for a reason, okay, I will answer them. But for now, for the video's sake, I don't want to diminish anybody's character. And I don't want to come off as if I am victim or have been victimized, because I have not been, and I'm not a victim. Just went through some things, some experiences that I am sharing with you guys in hopes that it will help somebody in their marriage or their relationship. So, beloved, I thank you for joining me here in the War Room this Tuesday for Testimony Tuesday. And I pray that you are allowing the Lord to minister to your every need. I pray that God's will is done for you in your life. I pray that the eyes of your understanding will be enlightened, that you may know what is the hope of his call for you, that you may know him in every area of your life, and that you will seek him for the things that you need, because he is a loving God, he is a just God, and he is waiting for you to come to him. He is waiting, beloved. But don't suffer in your marriage. Don't suffer in that relationship, knowing that you need God. You seek him for the things you need. If you want your marriage to work, take it to God. Write a list down. Make your requests known unto God. He's there to answer them. And if you don't want it, I'm going to advise you to take a break. And when I say that, not from that person, you take a break from those thoughts in your head. I told you last week, those thoughts are not yours. You take a break from the thoughts that you're thinking about your spouse. Those negative thoughts. How you can't stand this, that, and the other. What he does, what she does. Take a break from that. Go somewhere. Clear your mind. Write you a list. And I'm not talking about all the things you like about him or her. What the good outweighs the bad. That's good. That's a good list to have. But write a list of what you expect from your spouse. Listen, what you expect, what you desire, what you need. And then on the other side of that paper, what you expect, what you think God expects from you. And if it doesn't match that, you got a lot of work to do on yourself. You can't have a list of things going all the way down to 100 on him or her, and you only have 5, like you ain't did nothing, like you ain't got nothing. You don't need no working on. Nope. I would advise you to take a break from those thoughts in your minds that's telling you you don't want to work it out. Go before God. Make your request known to him. Place your marriage in his hands. Ask him to work it out. Don't just up and leave her, sir. Don't just up and leave him, ma'am. Don't talk to all your friends about him, ma'am. Don't talk to your boys about her, sir. You go to God, you let him be that third party. That person you talk to, you go to him with your list and your request. Ask him to show you her, how to better treat her, how to better treat him. Ask him to open up the mind and the eyes of your understanding to his needs and her needs. And ask God to give that to you and give you a different perspective. Ask him to give you a different outlook on your spouse. You said yes. So you ask God. You came before God with this person. You made vows. So you go to God. You find out what it is that you need to place in God's hands for your spouse, for your marriage. You take that mental break you need from all of those negative thoughts. You see what God has to say about it. And then you go work it out. Don't give up. There are a lot of people out there want to give up. That's what I kind of got in my prayers for the last week. There are a lot of marriages hanging on by a limb. There are a lot of people want to give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. You pray and you lay that thing before God. Okay? So may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and bring you peace in your life and in that situation. Again, thank you for joining me here in the War Room. Didn't get a chance to answer any questions, but there was a question asked to me, and sir, I will get that answer to you soon. Question asked to me was, how are you in your right mind after everything you went through? Because I follow all your testimonies, and they're like a little series. And from the abuse, the childhood, and the rape, and the molestation, all that stuff, how are you not crazy? You should be crazy. You should not be in your right mind. Well, sir, I am. And I'll get that to you maybe the next testimony because I don't want to go past this. I've already went 50-some minutes. I'll get that to you. God bless you. Thank you for joining me on whatever platform you are joining on. I enjoy you guys every week. I'll see you next Tuesday on Testimony Tuesday. God bless you.